Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Philip Macmillan, and I continue to bring you updates on the science and what is occurring in relation to COVID 19. Some people may ask, why am I still talking about COVID 19? Isn't it over? Well, the more serious phase where we had people in intensive care with breathing difficulties has passed largely, but the virus is still circulating. And for those people who think that mild infection is irrelevant, the more we look at the science, the more worrying this gets. And so, what I'll be doing here is giving you a very brief introduction to a paper. And it's this paper, The Potential Impact of SARS-CoV-2 Spike Protein on HIV Reservoir in People Living with HIV. As I said, I'm continually looking at the science. And so this paper has only recently been published, and therefore it is relevant to assess it in more detail. I can't do it right here, right now, because I think that this will take about an hour. For anyone who's been through my Eventbrite presentations, we break it up, we take questions, we clarify. Look in the description to join me on this Eventbrite in just about a little over a week's time for us to discuss the science and what it's likely to mean. I have also got the advantage that I am able to look unusual patterns related to HIV. Here is the paper and a few summary points about it. It was done by Maurizio Federico in Italy. Now, the first thing you have to notice, it was done by only one person. It's a narrative review, looking at the science and making his perspective on it. And because it's so, you could say, it's so challenging to the narrative, I don't know if many other people would want to join him in that process. But he raised the question, the fact that most widely used COVID vaccines rely on the production of biologically active SARS-CoV-2 spike protein expressed by synthetic mRNA poses the relevant question of whether and how this vaccination influences the fate of the HIV reservoir. Now, these are some important questions. I think what is frightening is that it has taken 6 years for scientists to feel comfortable to ask these questions, because these are very important questions. When people told you everything was fine at the beginning, it didn't take a genius to figure out that there is no way with a novel platform, novel virus, this is going to take a decade for us to figure out what in the world has happened and what the implications are. And so those who are not looking at it are not really acting in your best interest, because there is still a lot more research that needs to be done. Here he pointed out, despite being limited in number, the experimental evidences consistently indicate that the vaccine mRNA and or infection SARS-CoV-2 spike can effectively reactivate latent HIV. This is pretty serious stuff. And it means, therefore, that this has significant population impacts and should not be underestimated. And now, as I said, some people are going to discount it because they're going to say there is no evidence, but you can't find evidence if you're not looking for it. And science works first by a hypothesis. You come up with an idea, you say, well, what is the likelihood? And then you look for patterns to see whether or not the science aligns with the hypothesis. And so the reality is that this will be evident in terms of numbers if what he's saying is accurate. And in the paper, he highlights a number of mechanisms. Looking here, he highlights the mRNA vaccine can infect an uninfected bystander cell, which then produces here in green soluble factors, which can then impact on latent HIV cells to make them produce virus. Or it could go through the other route where instead of just the paracrine cells, it has different mechanisms stimulating latent HIV cells to again produce viral particles. And this is what we'll be going through in the presentation, looking at the different mechanisms and how it plays out. as usual, when I look at these things, I don't just think of HIV, because this is very relevant to other viruses that remain latent, related to shingles, because that is reactivation of the varicella zoster virus, herpes 1 and 2. So all these viruses that remain latent, based on this kind of extrapolation, can become reactivated. Epstein-Barr virus related to infectious mononucleosis and so on. This has pretty significant implications if the science is correct. So this is for people who really want to take a good look at it. As I said, look in the description. You'll see the link to the Eventbrite. We can then go through it in detail, and I'll explain to you the science in a sequential, stepwise fashion. And here we have as well, these data suggest the possibility that the spike protein and or the vaccine mRNA molecules affect the HIV-1 latency in people living with HIV. As I said, this paper has only just been published here on the 23rd of January, 2026. So we're getting this kind of information right at the forefront to see if we can make sense of what is happening next. We still have a long way to go. And a lot of people think that talking and focusing on COVID is no longer relevant. As I say, make it simple. We still don't know where this virus came from. We have no clear links to the natural evolution of this virus from a bat cave into this lethal global spread of a virus, okay? There still remains the possibility that there was alteration to a virus, which then may have been leaked or released or whatever. In a sense, it doesn't matter too much the detail. What I'm highlighting is that the capabilities of this virus, and specifically what the spike protein can do, is way beyond anything that we have ever seen. And what this means is that disease patterns are going to change. It's going to impact the way that disease presents. It's going to impact the way that people get sick. And across the board, anyone, certainly in healthcare, frontline, should be focused on this. Forget what the public is worried about, meaning or not worried about. From a clinical point of view, I think all healthcare people should be thinking, what impact can this have on my work, what I do, how I treat patients, disease presentation? All of these things are very, very relevant, and therefore it is incumbent on us not to drop the ball. Everybody else may want to do that, but we need to keep on plodding on. Keep asking the questions, keep doing the research, keep looking for answers, and keep trying to provide you with some sensible explanations. So again, look in the description below and let us see if we can make sense of this together. Have a great evening.
A hero, an immune adventure. Humming Heroes, your lyrical guide to the body's defenders. Now on Amazon. Check the links below.